Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Classroom Matters podcast with me, your host, Kristy Houle. And today's guest is helping out early childhood educators put an end to misbehavior. She's been featured on Fox News for her positive behavior strategies, and she's the host of the Pre-K Teacher Family podcast. She has over 100,000 followers across her social media platforms, and she's also created an online course that is helping teachers around the world create calm classrooms. Caylee Carullo, thank you so much for being on the show. And I'm so pumped. We're talking about preschoolers today. Yay!
Yes, we are. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
So I was just telling Caylee, and I'll share this with you, with the audience, but those of you that are in the audience, I know that you probably know this because you listen to the show all the time. We very rarely touch on the world of preschool, but I'm so excited that we're doing that today because our preschoolers are so important. And there's so many schools now that I'm noticing are opening up preschool centers, and it's just becoming really important for kiddos to be in those preschool environments, but it is a whole different world. So we're going to dive in, Caylee, and I want you just to first give our listeners a little bit of background about who you are, the work that you've done with early childhood, and sort of what you're doing right now.
So I taught preschool for 7 years, and then we moved to small town Montana and started our family. So I shifted to helping mostly preschool and kindergarten teachers with the tough behaviors in their classrooms. And I share different tips. I have an online course. And then recently I've started actually showing up in person and being the keynote speaker for trainings. So just helping teachers really all around the world with my course and with those tough behaviors with the little guys.
Do you think we forget about that group sometimes when we talk about education? And I know a lot of people usually focus on K through 12, K through 5, elementary school, middle school, high school. Do you sometimes feel left out, or do you have your own big giant group and organizations that maybe we don't know about?
Kind of both. Like when I taught at a school that went up to 8th grade, I feel like we were kind of forgotten about. Like the trainings would be for K through 8 and we would just work in our rooms. But now that I've focused on preschool and kindergarten, I feel like there's a lot of us out here and a lot of help that we need and a lot of resources. So I've kind of found the community.
And you talk a lot about, sort of your mantra is having a calm classroom. And I know that folks that aren't used to being around early childhood and those ages of students or children in the classroom, probably just are imagining like kids running all over the place and glue and scissors and shoes and band-aids,
Yes.
and tears and crying. And so, what are some of the behaviors or some of the chaotic things that a lot of preschool teachers are running into on a daily basis in these classrooms?
I love this question because so many times people say like, oh, you teach preschool? Wow. Like it must be crazy. You must be so patient. And I'm always excited to say, hold on, like these little guys can do so much more than we usually think that they can. So I love to come in and say, hey, they can do all of it. They can do everything that we want them to do. We just have to set them up to be successful doing it. So, I mean, we have all the behaviors that you can imagine, with the little guys, and just with them having their first experience in school, learning to share, learning to use materials, the first time they see glue and scissors, it could be very chaotic. But if you do it in a way that sets the child up to be successful, they will step up to that and they will go with you. If you take them on the journey in the right way, they will come along and they will take such pride in doing what the big kids do, doing things the right way and using materials the right way. And they want that structure too, because when a classroom is chaotic, it feels overwhelming for the students just as much as it does for the adults. So kind of bringing that sense of calm just lets everyone feel much more at ease.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this really truly is a student's first experience with systems, structure, other children, even perhaps if they come from a one-child home. and they're not
Yes.
used to that. They're used to having mom or, auntie or grandma or whoever is watching them or taking care of them, dad, into an environment where now it's not just about them. So, talk a little bit about that experience and how you kind of mentioned it already, but about how that systems and those structured settings really are effective for children. Because I know a lot of people say, well, just let them run around and play. They're kids. Just let them do what they want, right? I know. So, talk
Don't.
a little bit about the importance of what that does for a child to have that system for them.
So, kids want structure. They want to know that the adult in the room is going to step in if something happens. They're going to keep everyone safe. They're going to make sure that everyone's taken care of. And that lets them relax and just be kids. They don't have to take on other stressful responsibilities. They can just play. And so, really, just being positive is the biggest thing. So you come in and you're just encouraging them from the beginning, and everything you're trying to teach them, just how we sit in our chairs, how we use the colored pencils, how we do every part of what you're wanting them to do. You teach it in a really encouraging way so that they're like, oh my gosh, look what I can do. This is fun for me. It's not, oh, come on, sit down. I said do this. Or as soon as you start correcting them and making it a negative experience, they just start to shut down. And so it has to be positive, and they will follow your lead when you take that positive approach.
Mhm. Now, I know that there are a lot of teachers listening to this, and probably, hopefully, a lot of preschool teachers or early childhood, maybe even kindergarten, because I know this kind of ebbs and flows up into the age of kindergarten. And they're thinking, yeah, Caylee, that sounds great. And when they all sit down and do what you want them to do, but there's always going to be those kiddos that no matter what strategy you try, whatever you're doing with the class, that they are just still going to have those challenging behaviors. And teachers can get tired, exhausted, burned out. So, how do you help teachers help those students that are the most challenging?
That's my specialty, actually. So, I mean, that is really what makes me so passionate about helping with tough behaviors, because when I see those little guys that are giving the teacher the hardest time, I am able to come in and say, let's shift the way that we're thinking about this child and their behavior. And usually it's a case of the teacher saying, man, this kid is kind of ruining everything I'm trying to do. They're disrupting, they're making messes, they're misusing materials, they're doing all of these things. And that's super normal because the teacher, gets sort of elevated. They kind of have this distance that starts to grow between them. But when I can come in and say, hold on, we got to go about this a different way. This kid hears the same things every day from the adults. Quit doing that. You're a troublemaker or whatever. I need you to sit down. They're always hearing the same things. So I say we got to come in and throw a curveball. We have to approach this in a new way to really stop working against the kid and start working with them. And so, whereas they are creating problems and they're used to getting things taken away and they're used to not getting to do special things, like I come in and say, we need to do a little bit of work on the relationship piece. And then I can explain exactly how to do that too, because I know it's helpful to be like, what do I actually say? What do I actually do? So we do a little relationship work, and then we'll shift that to that child getting to help with a special job. And because all children need purpose. So when you have a kid who's getting in trouble or making bad choices, they lose their sense of purpose because they don't it's like, what are they showing up here for? Because they're not getting to, really engage in the fun things, and they're not getting to have a special job, or it's like, what's their purpose? What's their reason? So we have to give them that. And so we do a little bit of relationship work by just giving them a few genuine compliments, or asking them questions about themselves, just trying to reset the way that we're communicating with them. Because we're usually just always going, hey, I need you to stop. I told you to quit doing that. And now we can kind of go, hey, bud, what's your favorite color? I like blue too. And then the kid starts to kind of go, this is different. And they will respond to you differently because you're treating them differently. So we just have to remember, all kids are good kids. If they're making bad choices, we're there to teach them in that moment and help them to make good choices. But we have to separate kids from their actions. So the things that they're doing are not who they are. They're good. They are good kids and they want to be good. And we have to help bring that goodness out. And we do that by first building the relationship and then move that into helping them to find their purpose. Those are the kids that want to be helpers. They're being a leader, but it's in the wrong way. So we have to fix that and just tweak it a little bit so that they can be the leader in all of the best ways to help us.
I love that answer. And I love the things that you're saying, because as you were talking, I was taking some notes and I was writing some things down. And I do want to get back to some specific strategies, because I know that a lot of times when teachers, especially educators, watch professional development or listen to a podcast or watch a video, there's all of this theory thrown in, but they're really never given any practical application for a strategy. If this child says this, what do I say back? If this child throws the scissors at me for the fourth time, or another child, what do I do with that child? So I do want to dive deeper into that, but I love the fact that you're talking about the flexibility and the mindset, not of the child, but of the teacher. And we have to, as educators, be able to ebb and flow with the different personalities. And I know that's really hard sometimes because we're only human too.
Yes, totally.
Teachers are only human too.
That we get
And I love the
frustrated.
fact that you said you have to separate the child from the behavior, and that there are children that just maybe don't know what to do with all of that energy and all of those leadership qualities. And so what great advice for teachers to start thinking at it in a different way. And so let's talk about the mindset of the teacher. Talk a little bit about what that relationship building potentially looks like from the beginning of a school year.
So the kid shows up and all kids want belonging and significance. Those are the two important things. So they want to feel a part of the group and they want to feel the opposite of insignificant. They want to feel like they are bringing something to the group. And so when they start to do something that's, bad, or, they start to misbehave, it usually naturally just becomes like that kid's doing this and we're working against each other. So when you can shift that and say, we are on the same team, and say, hey, bud, I saw you doing that, but I know you can do it better. Or, hey, come, let's try that again, because I know that you're a good helper. And I know that you are ready to use all the fun materials that we have. And I know that you're a good kid, even though what you just did wasn't a good choice. Let's try it again. And when you approach it, the kids can feel how you feel. They can feel that are you on their side, or are you just trying to get them to do whatever you want them to do to behave? And when you can let them truly feel like, no, I care about you, and I have the best class in the whole school, or I have the best class in the whole world, and I'm so lucky to be your teacher, and I'm glad that you are here. They start to feel like, wait, people don't usually say that to me. And then when you take it a step further and say, hey, I have something that I need your help with. And they say, like, nobody usually asks me for help, but you say, I have a job that I need you to help me with. Would you help me? Then they say, okay. And then they're starting to feel that purpose and that sense of belonging. Like, I have things I do in my classroom, and if I'm absent, my friends will miss me. How important is that to feel like, because usually when that kid starts misbehaving, it's like, oh, well, that kid, everybody knows that kid. And he, we separate like them and us, and they get secluded. But really, we need to be bringing everybody together, especially when that kid is acting out. That kid needs us, even though they're not saying it or they're not showing it necessarily. What they are saying is like, notice me. I need attention. I need support. And so when we can, instead of like puffing our feathers and feeling like, oh, this kid is ruining what I'm trying to do, shift it to like, hey, that kid needs me right now. I'm going to show up and I'm going to help them. They will be less resistant to what you want to do.
And obviously this is so important, because these are the same children, depending on how the preschool teacher responds or doesn't respond to the challenging behaviors, this is now the second grader or the third grader or the fourth grader that has now learned about the power struggle. They've now learned about control. They've now learned about a pattern of bad behaviors. And so how important is it, and how important are preschool teachers in making an impact in that child's behavior pattern for the rest of their school career?
Well, I mean, it's so important because yes, it's these kids who they get stuck in this cycle. And it's like when they're little, if you just say like, oh, that was really mean, then you're kind of putting this kid in a box. And then, we put these labels on them and they become what we say that they are. So when you have a kid who grabs a toy and you go, well, that was really mean, that was a mean thing to do. Then they start going like, am I mean? And then they start, it's a cycle that they will kind of become what we say that they are. So when you can step in and say, hey, bud, I know that you're a nice friend. Let me show you something, or let's try that again, or, let me help you do it better. Then they aren't so likely to shut down because they see like, oh yeah, she knows I'm a good kid and she keeps making me feel good and pointing out things that I'm good at doing, which is something that especially kids who misbehave, they just get put in these little boxes and it's just like, that's what they are. And it's like, you can shift everything if you come in with your different way of talking to them and way of making them feel, because the way that children are made to feel is so important. And a lot of times we don't even have time to think about that because we got too many kids in our room and we have too much going on. But when we can really put emphasis on the way that each kid is made to feel, you will see the misbehavior fade away because you're making them feel like they're a part of something bigger. So, we're a team and each one of us is important. And the choices that each of us makes are important for everybody. It all matters. Like, it's not just, oh, that kid misses out on stuff and that kid has trouble with whatever. We got to bring them in and remind them, like, even if you forget that you're great and that you're good at so many things, I'll remind you because I know that you can be awesome. And I know that you're a great student or you're a great kid. And I'm a lucky teacher. Because when behavior starts, it's hard to go to that place, but your mindset is literally everything. It's your biggest tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's so important, like you're saying, to really kind of put that into perspective for them at that early of an age, because once they hit fourth grade, it's almost impossible. And now you've got a child that is getting suspended. You've got a child that's leaving the classroom all the time. You've got a child that's always in the office because unfortunately that's who they become and it follows them. Teachers talk, teachers say, oh,
Yes.
well, that kid last
Yes.
year. And then it just, oh, isn't that, I know it's
Yes,
such a
that
bad thing
warning.
that
They give the
teachers do.
warning
I know.
labels as they pass them on. They say, well, I want to tell you this kid is really whatever. And then it's like, if you just take that and say, well, oh, that kid's really whatever, then that kid's going to be that. And they're going to be that the whole year. And then you're going to pass them off the next year or, to their next teacher and they're going to still be that. But if you don't take that label and you don't accept that, and you welcome the kid in and you take a different approach and you put in some time to just talk to them, just get to know them a little bit, ask them questions, give them compliments, just say, hey, I noticed this, or, I love the way you did that. They'll start to react differently to you. And then you can completely change the labels. The kid doesn't have to be that loud, whatever anymore. The kid can actually become the opposite of that. They could become like the quietest leader that you can put into a position to model quietly cleaning up toys and look at how quiet they are. Like you can't take those labels that they come with and just accept them and let them be, because all of those, especially the negative labels, I always tell people that they're fluid, they're changing. Like kids are coming into us, they're blank slates. We want to emphasize the positive. And if you see something happen that is a negative quality, like we can shift it, we can change it. Don't put that label on and don't keep saying that same story about that kid, because you're then keeping them stuck in that box. And it's truly hard to get out. Like if you think about even kids that when you were growing up, kids that you went to school with, they all had those labels. Like it's like you knew it really early on. Like that kid was athletic, that kid was really smart, that kid was the class clown. and it sticks, and they wear them same labels all the way into adulthood. But if you notice those negative labels and, oh, someone said that kid is whatever, like accept that as a challenge to say, well, maybe the other teacher had trouble getting that straightened out, but that doesn't mean that I can't do it, because I know how important it is to connect first and then, help them become the best version of themselves.
So let's talk about how parents fit into this, because when you're talking about early childhood, you're talking a lot about probably a higher level of parent involvement, communication, as opposed to when your children, get into, like, my kids are all either graduated high school, in high school, middle school. And I mean, I'm lucky if I ever even talk to a teacher,
Right.
twice a year, unless my high schooler is having an issue or there's an event, right? And so parents with early childhood students are much more obviously involved. And so talk a little bit about how important that communication piece is, and maybe what some preschool teachers can do to, help themselves by communicating with parents when they are having these challenging behaviors.
Totally. So yeah, you're right. I mean, parents sign the children in and out every day. So you're talking to them every single day,
Mhm.
which is different than the older grades. And the biggest thing is that you get all different kinds of parents. And sometimes you have the ones that are sort of hovering. And I feel like for teachers, it can be like that becomes a problem parent. But I never really had many problems with parents. And I think it was because of the way that my classroom went. So like when a parent feels that sort of tension of like, well, she's not paying attention to what just happened with my kid over there, then they become more of a problem, because they're concerned and they're like, well, do you have good systems? Are you able to make sure that every kid is getting the attention that they deserve? So when you can have strategies that work to keep the kids engaged and to keep the behaviors a bay, then parents won't be as much of a problem for you. And I feel like they can be your best partners. Like school and home are very different. So like
Mhm.
if something's happening in the classroom, or something's happening at home, something could be happening in one and not the other. Once the kids are in my room, I can step up and get them on board with what I'm doing, even if, the parent is saying that they were having certain problems at home. It's like I can usually find ways to keep those problems out by just staying that positive route and just pointing out what they're good at and giving them things to do to help them step up and be leaders in a good way. But I feel like just connecting with parents it can truly make or break your year. If you have a few parents that get on your case about things, it's like then they're looking for more problems that are happening. Whereas like if you can set things up right with your kids and you can show them, parents are welcome here and we run a calm and happy space, then it's like everybody takes a breath and we can work together. Everyone wants to just do their best and have a great outcome, but it's like when problems arise, we got to come together. We have to work
Mhm.
together.
Mhm. Mhm. And how important is it for uh, preschool teachers to reach out to parents when it's a good thing, not just a bad thing? Because, a lot of times parents never hear from teachers unless it's something bad.
There's a lot of fun ways to do it. I mean, I used to have a photo, little private thing that parents could go on and see. And so they could flip through the pictures and their kids could talk about what was happening at school. And that helps them to feel like they have an eye into what's going
Mhm.
on in the classroom. But also, I mean, if you have a kid, especially that's sort of giving you some challenging things in the beginning days, like it's most important for you to establish a relationship with that child's family and point out the positives, knowing that this is a relationship that I want to have be a strong one. Because a lot of times I think teachers will go to a parent and say, I wanted to tell you about this that happened. And the parent will say, well, here's why, or, they would give me an excuse. And I'm like, don't worry. Like, I'm just telling you about what happened here at school and telling you what I'm doing about it so that we can be on the same page and we can work together about it. But I feel like parents, their instinct is to defend or
Mhm.
explain why. And it's like,
Mhm.
don't worry. Like, I love your kid and I'm here to help them make the right choice. So I want us to be like on the same page where you don't feel like you have to make an excuse for your child. I want us to work together to help them become the best that they can be, you know?
And so let's talk about the calm, happy classroom, because you've mentioned that a few times. And I know that that is the training that you do and the assistance that you give. So if I'm walking into a preschool classroom and it is one of your calm, happy classrooms, what am I going to see? What am I going to feel? What should that experience be like for students?
So I tell teachers that a calm classroom is really whatever you want it to be. So like if you want to have your kids run around a little bit crazy for a fun song that you're going to play and you want to have a energetic moment, great, you should be able to do that. And if you want to have a calm meditating moment where everyone's quiet and relaxed, you should be able to do that too. A calm classroom just means that you can do whatever you want to do because your students understand how things work and they feel like they belong and they follow the rules and they are kind to each other. And, you know, other little things like I usually turn off the bright overhead lights. Those I just feel like ramp everything up. And I usually, you know, have alternative lighting and I, you know, like the, especially for preschool, the cleanup songs. I always tell people what are, what do all cleanup songs have in common? They are all annoying. Like they're all this loud, like clean up, like chanting,
Right.
and it makes kids go crazy. So when you clean up in a calm classroom, I turn on just like this calming instrumental. I have a whole playlist that I tell teachers to pick from. All of these are good songs, and they're going to make your kids start cleaning up carefully instead of just like starting to slam things and like run in place. And it just makes them go crazy. And they're always just like, wow, you know, I never thought about that. But just it's a very purposeful, like transitions are very purposeful. It's never just like, hey, everybody walk over to get in the line. It's like there's a way to do things and every child knows their job in each part of our transition or each part of our day. And we've practiced it enough times and we've had fun and made it fun to learn the routines and to really get them down so that it's not a reminding kids all day, quit doing that. This is not how you do it. Why is this all a mess? Like you empower the kids to step up and take ownership of all of the parts of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned, and I kind of want to wrap up with this last question for our teachers. We're just getting into a new school year. What is some good advice for teachers that are already having some challenging days? They're coming home and they're like, oh, they're exhausted mentally, they're exhausted physically, and they're just already dreading going back into that preschool classroom because they have not quite yet figured out this calm classroom.
I would say that you're the leader of the ship, you know, the way that you feel and the attitude that you have and the assumptions that you have about the day are going to come through to your students. So you have to be the leader that comes in and says, today is going to be a great day. I'm so glad you're all here. And then just be mindful about breaking things down. Like you have to set them up to be successful. So whatever you're doing next, let's really break it down into small steps and let's have I'll show you how to do it and then you model it and then the kids go, "Oh yeah, let me show you. I know how to do that." And so when you feel like, "Oh my gosh, I have to keep telling them again and again and again," just know that that's your sign like I haven't set them up to be successful for this yet. I have to go back and break it down and really give them the practice to be successful with all the parts of the day. And like little by little, you'll feel like, oh, okay, look, they're all doing it. This is going really well. They're all feeling good. I'm feeling good. And just, you have to stay positive through everything. I mean, if you start getting negative and pointing out what kids are doing wrong, that's what you're going to see more of.
Right. Yeah. It's going to shift your own mindset too, to that negative
Completely,
mindset. Yeah.
completely.
Yeah. So your online course, I want you to tell listeners about that and your podcast, which I listen to quite a few of those. And you know what I love the most about that is they're quick, they're to the point, and they are literally so full of just great strategies and advice. And it seemed to me to all the ones that I listened to were real problems. Like they were
Yeah.
real challenges that I know educators are facing, especially early childhood, because I'd listen to one and then I'd be like, oh, the next one's about the playground. Oh, the next one's about this. Oh, the next one. These are great.
That's
And
awesome.
I don't even teach early childhood, but I was like, I thought they were wonderful. So
Yay.
talk a little bit, tell our listeners where they can find your online course and what that's about. And then obviously your podcast.
So, if the Calm Classroom framework that I just shared about is making sense to you and you would like to make some of these shifts in your classroom with me as your guide, I would love to invite you to learn more. I'm going to give you 19 strategies that are simple and effective to help you end the misbehavior. There's a link in the show notes that will take you to my website, triedandtrueteacher.com, where you can learn more about the course. And Kristy, I wanted to say thanks for having me by offering everybody a 15% off promo code. So that's just the code Kristy, Kristy, for a discount. And so my course is for early childhood, preschool, kindergarten. If you're in the older grades, but you would like to learn more about mindset, or if you're just not ready to sign up for the course yet, make sure that you join my email list, because I'll send you tips and strategies. And best of all, I get to talk with you. So like you can just hit reply to an email and say, here's something I got going on. What do you think about this? Because talking about behaviors is truly what I'm most passionate about. I could do it all day long.
Yeah.
So I'll write you back. There's a link in there for joining my email list. And then the podcast is the Pre-K Teacher Family. If you just search wherever you get your podcasts, take a listen there.
It really is. It's you do a great job on that. I have to say, it's very full of a lot of great information, easy to understand, easy to listen to, and they are literally things I'm telling you, folks. You can walk into your classroom tomorrow and utilize some of these strategies, not only from the online course, but obviously from the podcast too. And so something else you mentioned really quickly, you don't have to only be working in a preschool classroom for some of these strategies to work. A lot of the kindergartners coming in are, kids, the kids these days are coming in at all different levels. So
Yes.
kindergarten teachers, early, elementary, primary, all of these things I know that Caylee can shift and modify for some of the younger grades as well. So please don't hesitate or think, oh, well, I don't teach early childhood, this isn't for me, because it definitely could fit you if you are in the lower elementary grades as well.
Thank you. I've had some first, second grade teachers take the course and get, plenty out of it. And I also share a ton of tips on my Instagram page. So, parents, teachers, I have all kinds of people that follow me there for just quick tips. And if you have something that you need a tip for, reach out, send me a DM, and I'll come up with some ideas for you.
And all of our homeschool parents too. I want to throw that in there.
Absolutely.
I mean, because listen, I homeschooled for a couple of years when my kids were little bitties, and I was like, wait a second, I'm the teacher, now I'm the mom, I'm the teacher.
Yes.
They were running around crazy, they were bananas. I'm losing my mind. So same strategies can apply if you have multiple children in a homeschool setting, or you're working in a homeschool environment, like a homeschool organization where there's multiple children that you're working with. So this definitely applies to you too. So Caylee, thank you so much for being on the show. As she said, we'll have everything for you in the show notes, and maybe we'll have to touch base with you as the school year gets started, and we'll dive into some other topics on another episode.
I would love to.
It would be great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kristy.
And this is Kristy Houle signing off for this episode of the Classroom Matters podcast.